All right, everybody, it's comparison time. So what I have in front of me here are two laptops that might seem like they're coming from two completely different sides of the spectrum, but they're actually not in a lot of the ways. So on one hand, we have the new Lenovo Yoga Pro 7i, and on the other hand, we have their new Yoga Slim 7i Ultra. Now, before you go off and you say, Mike, you're comparing these things, it's absolutely crazy. There's no way that you should be doing this. But look, there is actually a method behind my madness here. Because these both do land in the upper middle range of the Yoga lineup and target very similar creator-driven workloads. They can even be configured to have about the same price. So what's actually the deal here, right? When should you choose one over the other? And more importantly, when will one be specified to such a high price point that it may be better to just jump ship and head towards the other device altogether? And while this video is sponsored and paid for by Lenovo, we're not directly endorsing either of these laptops. And this isn't intended as a review. For those, you can hit up any of these other creators with full reviews of the Ultra and Pro 7i. But obviously, the first thing that's going to jump out at anybody who's cross-shopping these laptops, especially if you're doing it in one of the online configurators, is the fact that there are a lot of spec similarities between these two devices, and at the same time, there's a bunch of points of divergence too that you need to know about. Like, both do use Intel's newest Panther Lake Core Ultra 300 series processors, but those come in two very different flavors here. First of all, just by looking at the names alone, you might think that these CPUs are cut from the same cloth, that they're basically the exact same, but the H series gets significantly more cores, and more critically, it can run in a higher power envelope, hitting a sustained 60 watts in our tests, while the Ultra 7 355 plateaued at only 40 watts. The Pro 7i also comes equipped with a discrete GPU instead of integrated graphics, faster memory, at least in this spec, a bigger, faster screen, and a higher capacity battery. But both get 32 gigs of memory and a 1TB SSD in their base config here in North America, with an option to double the storage capacity to 2 TB. Their prices are also within just $200 of one another, and they could be identical when Lenovo's frequent sales get factored into the equation. On the other hand, an interesting thing happens when you end up maxing out both laptops. Hit the Pro 7i with an RTX 5060 and an Ultra 9 386H, it gets to around $2,600. Meanwhile, upgrade the Slim 7i with the Ultra X9 388H that'll be coming to our shores, I think, a little bit later this year, and its memory speeds and its price climbs even higher. And yet the Pro 7i has a top spec that isn't even out yet. That one has an RTX 5070 12GB GPU. We don't have the pricing for that thing yet, but expect it to be well north of $3,000. So from a pricing standpoint, these two Yoga laptops do have a lot of overlap. And actually, when I was looking at things, it's actually a surprising amount of overlap. But knowing that, what kind of performance are you actually going to get from these things? And not only that, when it comes to more portable devices like these, what kind of battery life can you expect between them? In order to compare, we chose two spec layouts that'll cost about the same. So the fully optioned Pro 7i with an RTX 5060 against the Slim 7i Ultra with an Ultra X7 358H that's projected to cost around $2,600 when it rolls out here. And again, remember, this is before any type of sales are applied to these prices. They're going up against a Yoga Pro 7 Gen 9 from late 2024 with an Intel Core Ultra 7 155H and an RTX 4050, which was the maximum GPU spec for that specific generation. From a raw system performance standpoint, there's no denying the additional power being fed into the Pro 7i gives it a pretty big edge over the Slim 7i Ultra, not to mention that it has so many more processing cores. But look, that was a foregone conclusion, right? There's also been a massive uplift in just a few generations with it getting way better numbers than the Gen 9 model. Something that might be even more surprising is the tiny Slim 7i Ultra powers ahead of the older laptop too, all while being much thinner, lighter, more efficient, and quieter running. I guess that's Panther Lake showing its magic. The same situation goes for GPU accelerated creator workloads. I mean, sure, the Pro 7i Gen 11 with its RTX 5060 just runs away with things, but it's a bit mind-blowing to see the Slim 7i Ultra beat a 2-year-old laptop that has a discrete GPU. This just goes to show you how far integrated graphics have come and the benefits you also gain from pairing Panther Lake up with a discrete GPU. The Slim 7i Ultra also beats, or at the very least matches, the 2-year-old RTX 4050 based laptop in most games. But again, we can clearly see where the Pro 7i's strengths really lie. Its RTX 5060 allows it to hit above 100 frames per second in 5 of the 6 games here, which means you'll have no trouble playing AAA games at medium to even very high settings, even without DLSS enabled. And sure, I know I'm comparing an RTX 5060 to a 4050 here, but like I said before, these both represent the maxed out specs for each generation. And while the Pro 7i might be tops in overall performance, the Slim 7i Ultra takes the crown in the battery life department. And even for something a little bit less portable that uses a discrete GPU and a bigger screen, the Yoga Pro 7i's numbers are like a quantum leap forward when compared to the Gen 9 device. In many cases, we're talking about 4 or even 5 hours more time away from a plug. And for people on the go, that's going to be a huge deal. So overall, yes, these two laptops are in like completely different weight classes on the performance front. But when you open them up and start looking and feeling at the areas that users interact with the most, that's probably where they're the most similar. Like the Pro 7i is surprisingly portable despite it packing an 80-watt GPU. I mean, there's actual gaming laptops out there sporting lower end components and less powerful GPUs, yet they're thicker and heavier than the Pro 7i. And with a fully aluminum chassis, this thing feels good too. Not to mention the Luna Gray finish hides fingerprints so well. On the other hand, the Slim 7i Ultra is, well, it's an ultra portable, right? So razor thin, super light, a compact footprint, but still impressively well built with an all magnesium alloy design. Lenovo also sent us the FIFA World Cup 26 edition, which is why it looks so different from all the other Slim 7i Ultras that are out there. But I'm gonna be straight with you here, guys. If you care about your sanity, just avoid this cosmic blue color altogether. This thing is a fingerprint magnet and it just looks terrible. And open them up to start using the keyboard, well, that's where the similarities really start to hit hard. They both have the exact same keyboard, right down to its 1.5mm of throw distance and backlighting. But because of its larger size, the Pro series has more space given over to those speaker grills on either side of the keyboard. That said, both use an identical 4-speaker setup. The biggest difference is the touchpads being used here. The Slim 7i uses a haptic one that's just terribly implemented. I take the Pro 7i's standard touchpad with its Wacom technology over this thing in a heartbeat. Now you might be wondering, one of the areas that they completely diverge from one another is in their screen. I mean, we have a 14-inch device here, we have a 15-inch device here. So you would automatically assume that the screens being used here are very much not alike. But that couldn't be further from the truth, because when you place them side by side, other than their size, in a blind test, I swear, you would think that both of these looked identical to one another. They're both glossy PureSight Pro 1610 OLED panels rated at 500 nits of peak brightness, and they cover a really wide color gamut. There's nothing to complain about with either of these, and yet there are some very subtle differences here, like the Pro 7i has a higher refresh rate, a small reduction in its resolution, slightly better viewing angles, and it's certified for 100% of the Adobe RGB color spectrum. Another thing people expect in this class of laptop that's a little bit more creator driven is a great selection of ports, and I think that's actually the biggest point of differentiation between the Pro 7i and Slim 7i Ultra, because the Pro 7i is totally fully kitted out with everything someone buying into the space could possibly want, with a mix of 10 gigabits per second USB-A ports, Thunderbolt 4, and a UHS 2 SD card reader. Slim 7i Ultra goes in a completely different direction. It's got 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. That's it. Not even a headphone jack. For upgrading, you can't expect much here since both systems have their memory soldered to the motherboard, but the Pro 7i does have an open M.2 2280 slot that runs at PCIe Gen 4 speeds. So at the very least, you have that as a future upgrade possibility. So anyways, what we have here is two laptops that they might look very different, and they are, but they also share a lot of capabilities and a lot of features. But Lenovo has been very, very careful, because when you dig down into things, each of these very much stays within its own lane. They're meant for a little bit of the same segment, but at the same time, they diverge a lot when it comes to their true capabilities. And that's something that you really need to know when shopping within the Yoga lineup. The Pro 7i is all about delivering and even distilling this creator-driven experience into a compact, efficient footprint while costing hundreds upon hundreds of dollars less than the flagship Pro 9i. Meanwhile, the slim 7i Ultra is for those folks who value portability and battery life over raw horsepower. When you spec it out with the Core Ultra X7 processor, it becomes really, really good right across the board in creative work, still in battery life, in gaming, and a bunch of other things. So I hope this quick comparison video ultimately sheds some light about where each of these devices are positioned and gives people a little bit more clarity about what they should be looking for if you're choosing between each of these. Anyways, I'm Mike with Hardware Canucks, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, guys.